We are live on the internet, so you can join us there and hang out. Please don't do so while you're driving. It's archived. We can
Please, please.
yeah. Unless you want to play along at home, you got that set up. If that's the case, be my guest. But thank you so much for joining me and playing along with this, live experience. I know how hard it is to do, well, anything, really.
It's
I
too
must
hard.
confess, I'm a little tired myself, but it's good to see y'all. How is everybody?
Do good.
I'm doing good.
How are you?
The weather's finally nice.
Good, good, good. So I have to ask, in your lore, it states you are a Craigslist band, and I'm curious, do you think those parameters allow you to hone in the sound a little bit more from the get-go, just because if you put out a specific ask, you get to weed out the answers, or is it the opposite? You get to free yourself from constraints because it's just like, hey, it's a Craigslist band, where we get to just let it flow. How do you think it's shaped your sound overall?
Zach, do you want to talk on this one?
Yeah. Um, I think it's a little bit of both. I think the toughest part obviously is getting to a point where you've found your guys or girls or whoever.
Yeah.
That took a little bit. There was some very fun and interesting tryouts, and by the time we settled in on, we've gone through a couple different lineup changes actually, but I think the great part is it's a great challenge, individually. First off, meeting people you've never met, all from different backgrounds and different music backgrounds. Like John, Evan, and I, for example, really didn't have a ton of crossover in what we listened to, in what we liked up front. I think that allowed us to be a little bit more unique, but also presented a little bit of a challenge up front. So I think it's a little bit of both. Short answer.
Yeah. I noticed that just because in the mixtape, and fair warning, I did my best to put that puzzle together, because you're right, there
Sure.
is a lot of difference, but there is common ground. One of which, Dark Side of the Moon, appears on several lists. Is that an album you kind of came together as far as like aesthetic enjoyment, or do you think that helped form your sound in a way? Just agreeing on that one band, that one influence.
Can I speak to this one?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I honestly feel like I feel like we're just this soup that all this stuff comes in. Like Dark
I
Side of
love
the Moon
that.
was yeah, Dark Side of the Moon was not on mine.
Yeah.
And I had to just really, make some decisions. But Yoshi's Island soundtrack should have made the cut.
See, I mean that you might be in jest, but like Yoshi's Island had a killer soundtrack though. Like that is something
Yeah.
I will still wake up in the morning and you just have that as background noise in your head.
Yeah.
And you don't know where it comes from. It's just like, but a lot of like, I actually was talking to Anita Velveeta about this, about the
We
Earthbound
love Anita.
soundtrack. Oh, she's great.
Earthbound.
She's so good. But
Evan
Earthbound has
always
a killer
plays.
soundtrack. That's a great soundtrack too.
Evan always plays that guitar riff.
I love it. Oh my God! Yes, yes. I was about to say, like, actually, Nintendo music, in particular, The Legend of Zelda, has really found its
yeah.
way in our music. Actually, in a
Yeah.
lot of our recorded music, we've talked about, because we all, I think, collectively just love that game, and the music is just
Sure.
it's gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like our last album, Revelations, had a couple tracks that were just specifically inspired by The Legend of Zelda,
Yeah.
and the aesthetics of that game. So like it has found its way into our music, and we worship that music. And yeah, so
I have
never
Evan's
not
copy of
video
Breath of
game
the Wild
music.
right now.
Yes. So
Well,
good.
well, if you happen to be playing the
right
new
there.
Zelda game,
Hey.
maybe turn on the new GOWNS.
Is that the new Zelda?
Yeah, there's a new Zelda.
No.
So maybe put the new GOWNS in the background. Speaking of that,
Yes.
if you're just tuning in, I'm actually talking to the band GOWNS, making a mixtape for GOWNS here on Desert Islands, the show where I make mixtapes for my guests based on the 10 records they would bring to a desert island. We actually heard your new single earlier in the show. If folks like what they heard, where can they hear that again? Do you have a preferred place folks can get their hands on that?
Yeah, I mean it's
Spotify.
everywhere. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. It's kind of all over the web. So whatever your streaming platform of choice, I think it's on Bandcamp too. If you spend more time there. So we try to make it as available as possible. Obviously, as a local band, we don't want to make it difficult to find.
Of course. Well, check out new GOWNS. Speaking of local music, I mentioned Dilly Dally Alley earlier in the set, and their release show is tonight. So yes, as promised, here is some Dilly Dally Alley here on Desert Islands. Hold on, can you still hear me, or do I have to change the mic?
We can hear you. Right.
You can hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, cool. Yeah, I must confess, because so I'm doing a residency every Tuesday at the 331. So
Oh,
Nice.
there was a point
Love that place.
where I stopped working on the new lists. I did my best to incorporate everything into the mixtape. I tried to, I do that anyway, but there were some things that I just didn't see until the morning, and I was just like, oh no, it's just there's a bit of well, too late now in this program. So I hope you're willing to play along with that, but also tired.
Yeah, of course.
I am tired. That's how I am. I good spirits. I feel like the shows are going well, but like it is kind
Nice.
of an endurance trial. It's not the same as it was when I was in my 20s. Doing these residency gigs feels a little bit different when you got to get up in the morning. I think the only difference now is like in my 20s is like I didn't have to get up in the morning. Now I do. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a daze. I'm trying to focus.
Mhm.
So bear with me.
Time gets faster and we move slower. That's kind of the way it is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that is that's going to be kind of the list. We do have some more of that stuff coming up though. Getting into like Slow Dive and okay, so how do you pronounce is it Dive, Diiv? I've always wondered how you pronounce this band, because I've seen it written down so many times, and it's just like one of those bands that like you don't want to like ask that question aloud in a record store. You know, you almost be like, hey,
yeah.
Yeah, cop.
and
No.
you don't I'm going to tell you the answer.
It's pronounced Dive, and it's cool because they were forced to change their name because they were just called Dive, regular Dive. And there is another band out there called Dive, and they had to change their name, so they just changed it to a funky spelling.
Yeah, because I have seen that written down, and I've always thought it was Dive. But like, yeah, that it's we have that coming up.
Fun fact on Dive. So I share the love for Dive with Evan. We've talked about that a while back. My dad actually showed me Dive.
Really?
Back when I was in college. Yeah, he like gets into the depths of YouTube in like indie music, and he's he turned me on to Tame Impala too, like back when it was Lonerism, before Currents and stuff like that. I was like, geez, this guy's blowing me out of the water. I thought I was good at discovering music.
Well, I've noticed this in my students too, because of like the internet. Everything exists all at one time now, and I think like you could even see this in music journalism, where like they would treat music as this thing that existed on a linear timeline. Like it wasn't enough that Nirvana existed. Nirvana existed at a particular time, you know, or like My Sharona like is a good song because it like came to like kill disco or something. You know, like there's like these narratives that play forth in linear time, but like there is an entire generation and a half, or maybe an entire 2 generations, that is listening to music. They don't care about any of that. All of that lore is completely irrelevant because it just exists all at once. You know, like Wednesday and 100 Gex is just as relevant as Tears for Fears. You know, like just because it exists all at once and you can consume it based on like your convenience and like what kind of feels good to you. So it's like, but it's weird how people are discovering music where it's just like, it's coming from places that, you know, like a lot of people are discovering it from movies and like Netflix shows, but like there are
I was
people
just gonna
like,
say Stranger Things. I feel like
Stranger
thought
Things,
about that. Like,
Metallica.
running up that hill, people probably thought that was like a new song, and it's like,
but
well,
there,
no, it was
I
huge in
have
the 80s.
noticed a lot of people discover music off of YouTube. Like some people have their algorithm tuned in where it's just like they just get some interesting stuff coming up the pike, and that's like an equally valid place to like find stuff now. It's just like at this point, like there's so many places to get it. It just kind of depends like at your comfort level of the fire hose. Like I'm still not on TikTok. I'm not like it's I'm not, no shade to the people who are like I feel like my brain's already melted enough.
Yeah.
There,
You don't have to be on TikTok.
it's like I'm going like untethered if I go there, if I just join in, you know. But like I do know a lot of people where it works out for them, you know, like they thrive in it. But like I feel like it would just like it would ruin my life.
YouTube is
It's a really good place to discover music too, I'll say. I've found some like really cool bands that I might never have, you know, heard of just because of a random video that takes off. Like look at Dirty.
I've heard that.
You know?
I've totally heard that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it's I kind of it begs the question because it's like I feel like discovering music is it used to be like there's like a few channels where it's just like it's like, oh yeah, you get music here. Now I feel like people find it in different places, you know, like it's just like what do you think like what was the first record on the list? Like what do you think you discovered first? You know, like cuz I've actually been finding people like it used to be like, oh yeah, all the classic rock stuff you discover first. Like now I'm finding people it's like the opposite. It's like what they were like listening to in junior high, and then later in life they're like, oh yeah, now I'm listening to like all this like, you know, either like classic thrash metal, you know, or like a lot of like the grunge era, or like now they're getting into Zeppelin. You know, like it's just like the timeline is irrelevant at this point. Like, so what do you think you discovered first?
I know the
Definitely,
exact
like-
album.
Oh,
You do?
Go ahead,
You
Zach.
do? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's start with John.
So I grew up in fundamentalist evangelical Christianity in West Virginia, and so I was in the church, and also, you know, I don't want to get into it right now, but
You don't have to.
but you know, there's a certain kind of mental compound that you kind of grow up in.
Yes.
And so, you know, I wasn't exposed to anything other than the gospel music that was playing at my church until I was a teenager. I heard Viva La Vida, the song, for the first time on the radio at a friend's house. And and it already has those like it's like a biblical story already, you know. And it's like the rise and fall of power and things like that. But it had this like, it spoke to this kind of biblical truth. And that song just was the hook that took me into Satan's lair, as it were. And
so Coldplay
what is it?
gets enough credit for being a gateway drug, though. I don't think they do.
Yeah.
They
don't. Yeah.
Point.
They
Yeah.
do lead to other things, like when people, because like there a lot of people where it's just like their journey starts from like top 40 radio, because like that's all you have. Like if you grow up in a town where it's just like, look, it's either this station, the classic rock station, or it, you know, the rest are like Jesus, 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 and like, and it's like it's not even a bit, like that's a real thing. If you like certain parts of the country, if you like try it on your own dial, find it, it's just like there's more than one station now, but like it's like one, most of it is this. But like Coldplay, like especially like Clocks, I feel like a lot of people heard that song and we're like, wait, what's this? And like they started that journey into Satan Slayer.
Oh, totally.
Like,
yes,
okay, so
I think Yellow is a song too from them. That
you're into the secular, the secular gateway. Where do you go next from there? Like what was the record that like made you go like, wait, I think I want to do this now? You know, like where does it go from there?
Kind of Blue, the Miles Davis album. Yeah. I also had like, you know, just basically mixtapes of like best hits of like, you know, Debussy and just you know, all that good stuff too. So
Shania Twain and
yeah. So yeah,
that's
you know,
good stuff though. Don't hate on Shania Twain. She's got some class.
I'm not hating.
I grew up in North Dakota, so I've heard enough.
Still brings the house down though. It's like some things I feel like are just inescapable, and because you are exposed to it as a kid, you know, maybe like you're like just kind of biologically engineered to like hate like what you know, it's like, oh, that's my parents' music, or it's like, oh, it's like this town, you know, it's like that's what they listen to, it's not what I listen to. There is an element of that where, like you just kind of push it away, but there are things that kind of come back, you know, like there are certain things that like my parents listen to that like are part of my catalog now, where it's like as much as I like kid I would roll my eyes at Jackson Brown and the Grateful Dead and all that stuff. Now it's like looking back, it's just like, well, you know, that stuff is like important. Like it kind of changed society in a weird way, or at least it like wove a new fabric, and it's like part of it now, and like you kind of like appreciate it later. And I think like there are elements to country music, especially top 40 country, where it's just like, all right, this is kind of cheesy, but like all the talent behind it is like top class. It's like ridiculous, like how like, you know, like good the musicians in country are. It's just like there's some Garth Brooks that I like look back on like at first where I was just like, ah man, Garth, like that guy, and then like he has a few albums where it's just like, yeah, but that's a good song, you know. It's like, it's like that's a song.
Classic musician right there.
Several other people cover where it's just like, all right, that's, I mean, like you can't deny that, like that.
Yeah,
like,
I think country specifically took a turn in like 2010 is when I really was like, oh, now I don't like it. But up until then, like I like old country.
Yeah. Oh no, I love country too. Like, you're absolutely right. Right in that era, that's like, I think Steve Earle kind of had a quote of it where it's just like, at this point, like country music is just hip hop for people who are afraid of black people.
Oh my god, that checks out.
Like
it Georgia Line's fault.
It became like this cash grab where it's just like, sorry folks, but there's money to be had, and you know, like, and it's just like there's so many weird things, and yeah, I don't know. Let's because okay, so this Slow Dive song is kind of coming to a close, but like when we're back on the rate, because we're still on the thing, because there are counters, I can see people watching, like going up and down, but we're going to be on the radio as well. Let's continue this kind of conversation. I might ask the same question just for context, you know, because we're kind of transitioning, but stand by. There's about 10 seconds left on this.
You got it.
Crazy for you. Tender Buttons in the middle, and then Dilly Dally Alley new local music. And they're playing, the release show is tonight. So if you're just tuning in, I am making a mixtape for GOWNS, and we're talking off mic. You can join us there, and you can still hang out with us because we are live. But off mic, we were talking about the Desert Islands, the Desert Island Records list, and how we put this mixtape together. But not only that, the first record that kind of came into your lives. So where did we leave off? Like, are we at Zach now? Like, what was the first record that came into your life off of this list?
Off of this list, I would say, I have a lot of good memories listening to Alice in Chains and Pink Floyd.
Sure.
With my dad. And for me personally, the first CD I ever bought was Linkin Park. So kind of two different situations.
Dude, I remember when that came out. That was like huge amongst my friends. Like everybody had that record. Yeah, that was a big.
I'm a big nu metal fan, so like when that, looking back, like we don't have to get into it, but I love Korn, and I get flack for it all the time. But they kind of like brought that nu metal and alternative together, and kind of paved a little bit of they took it off to their own separate path, I think, that kind of built that out. And like
absolutely no, this is a safe space. I you can defend nu metal all you want. I'm sure off mic the the opinions might, but I'm not gonna. I'll do my best to moderate that, but I am not gonna yuck anyone's yum for that. Just because it's like I've noticed now, because we were talking about this earlier, because now everything exists all at once instead of like, the narrative of where nu metal came from. There is kind of that, because it was kind of reactionary to like everything was just like, oh man, boy bands suck, we're not this, we're that, so like there was like kind of like a reactionary attitude, but there is a lot of people kind of revisiting some of the old nu metal stuff and going like, yeah, but this is actually like a good pop song though, like kind of removing the context. And like I've even seen Limp Bizkit apologists online, so it's like at this point, I'm not yucking anybody's yum. That's why, I'm just here to try to make a mixtape and see if it all fits together. And I think, I think for the most part, all of it does. So okay, so the follow-up question was there a record on the list once you got exposed to it? Because John, you mentioned, because we have a similar background, coming from religious backgrounds and going like, like I feel like all I know is like my parents' music, and then like the the sacred or the gospel, that kind of stuff. And then there's always a record that kind of goes like, that kind of breaks that door down. But was there a record in your life that made you go, okay, I know I like this, but I think I can start doing this? Was there a record on this list that inspired y'all to play music, or at least give forming a band a shot?
Well, I think I spoke to it a little bit earlier, but Kind of Blue by Miles Davis
Kind of Blue
was that record for me. So that's whenever I picked up saxophone in a big way. I'd been playing it in middle school, but it was kind of auxiliary. And then by the time, 9th grade, 10th grade hit, I was playing at least, I mean, I don't like to put hours to stuff, but there wasn't free time that I had that wasn't on the saxophone. I heard Cannonball Adderley play on that record, and just the depth of human history. It was like an anthropological study in sound, listening to Cannonball's, saxophone playing. Everything was there, all of human history was within his sound. And more than that, it was groundbreaking, and it was a statement on, it was, it had a political direction as well, it's righteous,
even the instrumental stuff, because Coltrane was that for me. Like Coltrane was like kind of my entry into Miles, but like Coltrane was kind of my entryway into like just the broader world of music appreciation, you know. But like
Yeah.
even then, it wasn't a record that made me believe I could probably do that, you know. Like it was more of like, oh, this is blowing my mind, and I didn't realize
Yeah.
music could be this, and it could be, you know, there's a lot of dances of like the sacred and profane that we were kind of alluding to earlier. But you know, it did make me think I could do that. But getting off topic, Zach or Evan, was there a record, you know, because Coltrane wasn't that for me, but was there a record that you listened to where it's like, not only does this rock, it makes me believe I can form a band? Was there something on this list that kind of pushed you in that direction?
Ev, you can go.
Yeah, I mean, there's on the list, I'm not really sure like if there's anything in there that like inspired me to want to form a band. But I do know that like a band that was huge for me was Ramones.
Oh,
That
sure.
that was
Yeah.
my entry point into punk and kind of just music in general. That's where it all started for me, and that's what inspired me to play guitar. You know, like there's a lot of bands, but the Ramones were huge for me, and they really kicked off my musical journey. I would say they were my entry point. So yeah,
Absolutely. For not only songwriting, but like aesthetic and attitude too. I think they're
totally,
like
totally,
a
yeah.
key reference. And
It
being
it
able to be
started
like, oh wait, we could figure that out. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do
exactly,
that.
exactly. Well, it started for me in like fifth grade, and
Yeah.
and uh, you know, I really started to lean into that punk sort of image, and it wasn't really cool at the time, like in the early 2000s, but it
Such
was
a
going
trendsetter,
well
Evan.
for me, and I met people that were into punk as well, that liked the Ramones and stuff, and I started
Yeah.
jamming with them, and that was kind of when I first started realizing, like, yeah, I can do band stuff. I like doing this. So we used to just jam in my friend's basement, play Ramon songs, play kind of whatever, you know, White Stripes and stuff like that. And
Oh yeah.
that's kind of where I was like, I need to be doing this all the time, just jamming.
White Stripes were
Yeah.
definitely one of those bands for me because my friends kind of exposed me to the DIY scene because I still had that like theater kid mentality that like there was like a fourth wall between you and the stage of just like, well, you can't just do that. You have to like join a thing first, you know? And so like you would see your friends' DIY shows and it's like, you kind of felt like you're getting away with something where it's like, oh, we're not supposed to be doing this. We're not supposed to be doing this. And then the White Stripes were like the first band I saw on the national stage that was kind of from that world doing it. And it kind of like, that is what kind of broke everything down. We're like, oh, wait, there really aren't any rules. Like you can just do whatever you want, and it doesn't have to be pigeonholed anywhere. Like you can just do whatever you want, say whatever you have to say, and you don't have to compromise, and it can still be as valid. You know, what you do in your friend's backyard is just as valid as, you know, what you're seeing on the radio. It just is coming from a different place, and that was kind of cool. Okay.
Yeah. No, you're
Zach,
exactly right. Yeah.
I want to make sure we can get your take on this because it is kind of hard managing the Brady Bunch effect. If you were hanging out with us online, we are the reason I'm saying around the horn is because I can actually see everyone in gowns, and if you want to do that and join us, you can do that as well. But Zach, same question. What was the record that kind of made you want to start playing music?
Yeah, so I have kind of a unique musical journey. I was pretty much sports all the way up until the end of high school.
Oh, sure.
I tried out for band in fourth grade, and I wanted to play the drums. He tried to stick me on trumpet, so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do, sports. Retrospect, could have maybe done something different, but in college, I was like, well, what do I do now? And by that time, I'd had all this different musical influence from like the Cars to Pink Floyd to Korn. So I was like, well, I'm going to try music then. If I've got the time now, and started, playing drums, learned off of YouTube and stuff like that. So not a great answer. I don't really have anything particular. I had so much under my belt, like in terms of like influence and stuff like that since then. So, you know, if I had to say something, I'd probably just defer back to like the Alice in Chains and Pink Floyd.
Oh, sure,
and
sure.
The Cars, the Bengals.
It does kind of go back to the theme of how we started on this conversation of just like everything does kind of just exist. Time is like a flat circle at this point as far as like the cultural impact of this stuff, because it's like it's all kind of on a level playing field now. And like it's like and I bring up the Craigslist thing not as a joke, just because like I feel like years ago that would have been like, oh my god, what are you, nuts? How do you know if these people are even like they're on the level? They could be murderers. It's like, but now it's almost just like, oh yeah, that's a great way. Why didn't I think of that? Like
we auditioned murderers,
you know,
so.
yeah. That's kind of like there's resume, you know, like body count, how many, you know, this whole thing. There's a whole ordeal. You know, there's got to be goalposts.
Fun fact, though.
Sorry, fun fact.
I was gonna say, fun fact. The first song I learned on drums was White Stripes, Seven Nation Army. Probably the easiest song on drums ever made. So
I still teach that song though. You know, like
oh yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it gives you like confidence if you can pick it up right away, and you're like,
oh yeah,
I can do this. You know.
And it's also like in a weird way, just kind of part of like the public consciousness at this point. You know, like for me, it's just like, it's like, oh yeah, this is and it's like now it's classic rock at this point. It's an anthem.
Oh yeah.
So speaking of anthems, I am making a mixtape for Gowns. If you're just tuning in, this is Desert Islands, the show where I make mixtapes for my guests based on the 10 records they would bring to a desert island. Today I'm doing my best to make one for Gowns. I don't know if I'm going to have time to get to the whole mixtape, but hey, we're going to do our best. We're going to do our best to hang out and listen. Come hang out with us. We are streaming live, so off mic, you can hear what we're talking about. But don't do that when we're driving. The video gets archived. You can hang out with us there. Follow us on Facebook, Desert Islands, KFAI. Both of them, they both got pages. You can come see us. So let's keep going. Here is Dive here on KFAI.
You know, we're talking about like these songs becoming classic rock.
Oh yeah.
So the album "Move Along" by the All American Rejects. I just saw something yesterday on TikTok that said that song just turned 17 years old.
Ooh, that's wild. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of people are kind of already putting that era into the conversation. Like it or not, Third Eye Blind is kind of inching its way.
Yeah.
To that
I was about to say, like 20 years they consider that vintage. So like 20 years.
Right.
Are we giving 2000s now music the classic rock treatment? And furthermore, to go a little deeper, I was watching Back to the Future the other day, and it takes place in 1986, and he was calling the Chuck Berry song "Johnny Be Good" an oldie. So that was about 30 years difference. So if we're going 30 years, if we're saying that oldies music is only a 30-year difference, does that mean that Nirvana is oldies now?
Yeah, it is. No, Nirvana already is in classic rock rotation.
Oh, it's in classic rock for sure.
It is.
Yeah.
Like I've heard it on the whole, like, you know, like you hear like the voice or like you get that DJ and then you're like driving through like Wisconsin or something, and it's like, you know, Pearl Jam and Nirvana are already like on those. It's like it's not just 60s, 70s, and 80s. Like the 90s are that cutoff. You know, I think 2000s is not quite there. Like 2000s is still, you know, like I think it's like retro, kind of like it's like some of the early 2000s stuff. It's like, oh, like what a throwback. You remember this, you know, but like 90s definitively for it, like that's in the classic rock canon now.
And once we hit the year 2030, then it's like 2000s. You have no choice.
It's not. Yeah,
Tame Impala is going to be
Seven
classic
Nation
rock.
Army is like, Seven Nation Army is like 25 at this point, right? Like, when did that come out? 2001.
Yeah.
It's like 22. It can drink.
Yeah.
The record can drink at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like to those born relative to when they came out, it'll never I'll never consider Nirvana classic rock. I'll call it grunge, or 90s rock or whatever. But to me, classic rock will always be 70s and 80s.
So I go back and forth on my feelings about this because so are these feelings existent because it's a natural part of aging, or has the perspective of aging fundamentally changed because we are filming everything? Like a lot of these art forms are like just kind of spurring out of like our attempt to freeze time, because we always love music and it's like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if we could relive this over and over and over? And that kind of became like this art form, but like now that we have several methods. We have podcasts, we have vid chats, what we're doing right now, we have film, we have TV, we have like constant streaming, we have are we just doing the same thing our parents did, where it's just like, no, that's not because it's mine. God damn it, it's not old because it's mine. It's not like your stuff's old, not me. Are we doing that, or is things like fundamentally aging differently because we've had film of that, like they just exist in the same universe all the time? So it's like, wait, no, that's not 25 years. It's like, yeah, it is. It's like, yeah, but I just watched that. I'm like, well, yeah, so did I. It's on YouTube. Like everything is like instantly now, then, and kind of in the future all at once. And like, so I don't know. I do know that like it eventually we perceive time differently because like, I don't know. There's all those videos where it's like time is an illusion, but like we just perceive it as linear because we have memories. I wonder what our generation is going to age, just because like we already have so much stuff and stimuli already, but like we also don't have to remember everything because it's like already, the phone is kind of like our second thing where it's like, well, I don't have to remember that because I can look it up now. Like I used to have all my phone numbers memorized. I know like probably both my parents and like maybe two other numbers.
You're pretty good.
Point, because I don't need to. It's down there. So it's like, how are we gonna, how is the journalistic conversation about music gonna happen? How are we gonna remember stuff? And like, how is, where do we go from here? Just because like I do think time gets distorted because we film everything. We get desensitized in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But like we grew up with that. There's already generations where it's just like the internet's kind of in their blood. So like that doesn't phase them. To us, we kind of had like one step in both. Like we kind of saw like the before time and then this time. So I don't know. Maybe it's like I don't know. Well, I guess it depends how old everyone is, because I'm 30s. So like, maybe I've had more time to process me becoming old.
I can already see myself becoming my parents. So
it's unavoidable.
Yeah.
Like my dad would always geek out on stereo equipment. Like no matter, like you try to wire the whole house, and I could just like remember my mom would do that thing where it's like, do we really need to like, and it's just like, oh yeah, you kidding me? It's like, yeah, but like every corner of the, like, do we need a subwoofer in this room? It's like, yeah, you won't even notice it. Like it'll be part of the furniture. We can hide it here. I didn't get that until I got to a certain level where I start, like you play certain smaller venues and like the kick and the sub frequencies aren't there. So now I bought a subwoofer that I just bring to smaller gigs. So like the drums actually kind of, and I'm just like, it's like you mentioned becoming your parents. It's like, oh, holy, I'm my dad.
Yeah.
Oh no! You look in the mirror. You're, oh.
It's like it's gonna crowd the stage. Like, no, like I'll sit right on top of it. Like you won't even notice it's there. It's like, nah, we gotta bring it. We gotta. What are you kidding me? We're like we're bringing the subwoofer. It's like we need it. Like no, you can't live without it. Like, so it's
I think my dad's happiest day of his
your own
life is when he got surround sound.
and unavoidable. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's completely unavoidable, but
Speaking of completely unavoidable, we actually have less than 20 minutes left, and the next show is Democracy Now, so I do have to make sure we're on time. But like we are kind of getting to that point where I don't know how many talk breaks we're gonna have on it. Like this time we can talk about whatever, but like I want to make sure there's like if you have any like important gigs coming up, if you're gonna release more music, maybe the next talk break, let's kind of like use that to kind of plug that stuff, especially get in the who's, the what's, the where's, the whys. Not that this isn't fun, it's just and not that people aren't watching, it's just there's a different audience listening when it's both radio and live, and I just want to make sure we get the best shot to plug the stuff, because that is why we're here. You release a new single, let's talk about stuff. But yeah, do you have gigs coming up that we can talk about? First things first.
We don't have any gigs lined up, but we do have one more single, and then we'll be releasing a full album that is all but completed. Just needs to be mastered, so it's right at the finish line. So that's what we've been putting most of our energy into, is getting that. Finished.
Is that something you feel comfortable talking about on the air as well, or do you feel like that's like too early in the process?
No, that's totally fine.
No,
I mean, we're about to
yeah.
release our 4th single, so it's kind of like
well, let's definitely talk about that, and let's make sure we drop that date, and then like where people can listen to it later and all that fun stuff. I guess we don't have to talk about timeline about the full LP. We can kind of focus on the single, but let's definitely talk about like. Do you mind if we talk about who you're working with? Like where you're recording, all that? Cool. Let's definitely get that in there. And then this song, we're going to be back on the air after this song. And then I got to get some underwriting carts in here. So is there anything else that we haven't mentioned yet that we could kind of plug in this talk break, just because we're getting to the point where it's like we have a minute until we're on the air. So we can just work that in if you want to mention it now.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is the single and the album for us. So
perfect. All right. Well, yeah. Why don't we do that? Just kind of get cross our T's, dot our lowercase J's, because this is why we do this. So yes, stand by. There is 45 seconds left on this track. So after that, we're going to be on the air. And then, yeah, here we go.
Did you know they stopped teaching cursive in school?
I haven't used it since I learned it.
I do a hybrid, like half of it's print, half of it. Yeah.
People, I'm surprised. I don't know many people who even. I dropped it like as soon as I was allowed to not use it. I was just like, all right, nope. It was like, but I think that was like part like Catholic school rebellion, because like you had to like, if you didn't write it, you wouldn't get credit for assignments. It's like, nope, do it again, but in cursive. Like,
it saves me time. That's why I think I like it.
Sweet. We also had some acetone in the middle of that set. The song being Germs and Under the Sun. Dive kicked things off. If you're just tuning in to KFAI this morning, this is Desert Islands. I'm your host. You can call me Doc, and this is the show where I make mixtapes based on my guests. 10 records they would bring to a desert island. Today's mixtape is for GOWNS, who I'm talking with right now. If you're following at home, we are doing a vid chat on the internet. So after this little talk break, you can join us there. But if you're on the road listening to your car, don't do it there. We will be waiting for you in cyberspace in the archive. But we heard a new single from GOWNS at the top of that set. And I know you are working on a new album, but you mentioned you have a new single coming out. So if you like what you heard, there's one on the way. When are you dropping that new song?
Yeah, great question. So I would expect to be announcing that within the next like 5 to 7 days, business days.
Yeah.
We are just finishing up the master, and we'll announce everything like we do with every other thing as well on our Instagram, and that's at GOWNS Band.
Sure.
So we'll release that. It's called Sophomore Story. It's going to be a fun sing-along one if you're into that, and hopefully a summer jam for a lot of people. But got that coming out, and then as you mentioned, are just putting the finishing touches on an album that is TBD for release date, but I would say, within the next month or two.
Sure. So do you think this will be a 2023 release, or do you think you'll hold the okay, there we go. Well,
For
you
sure.
have that to look forward to. Who are you working with on this album? Where's this being done?
Yeah, we are working with the almighty Jack Vonderchek, who is the unofficial 6th member of GOWNS. His business is called
Genuine wizard. Yeah, he's the front man.
Yeah, he's incredible. Every artist should work with him, TBH. But his business is called Tangerine Studios. He is currently located in Woodbury. He completely renovated his basement to be a top-notch studio. We worked with him on Revelations, our last album.
Yeah.
And then, of course, everything included with this next album. But truly just amazing at his craft. And just you can see, like, watching him, do all the stuff on the keyboard and like the boards and stuff like that is just, he makes us sound better than we are. I'll say that.
Yeah, the recordings sound great. The textures are crisp and clear, so I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah, he's truly wonderful, and we really trust him, and he really gets our sound, and has also contributed to creating that sound. So we really owe him a lot, and he's really building a great base of artists that he works with, like us, and then Dury has also worked with them.
Dury's great. Yeah.
The Catalina, and who else has worked with Jack?
Colin
a lot of people. Colin Bracewell. Yeah. That's actually where we met Colin.
Been on the show.
Yeah. So so he's just
Deontay Genius.
A lot of Deontay Genius, and just like a lot of great people, and we really love Jack, and hope that a lot of artists can also discover him and work with him, because he's just wonderful.
It's crazy how small this town is once you start really looking at it. So we don't have much time here. So you got the new single coming up, you got the new LP coming out later. If folks like what they heard, where can they hear it again? You mentioned Instagram. Is that the best place for everything moving forward, or do you have other avenues for the music and other avenues for updates such as performances or just social media in general? Where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah. I would say Instagram is definitely our most active channel for updates and sharing our songs and everything like that. Facebook, sometimes we forget, but we do have a page that's fairly up to date. And then for streaming, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Bandcamp, all all the streams.
Nice. Well, I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's really hard to do anything, let alone while you're working on finishing an album. So I appreciate you taking the time to come by Desert Islands. If you like what you hear, check out GOWNS, GOWNS Band at Instagram. But today's mixtape is also based on the 10 records they would bring to a desert island. And we also heard their latest single. So if you want to hear it again, check out the archive or just keep up with GOWNS on socials. So up next, we have the Mad Villain. We got some MF Doom. We got some Mingus. And we got some Bob Dylan. But first, we have this. KFAI is stoked to present Converge. Got to make sure I get the underwriting things, because if I didn't, there's no way I would get them all in time. So we got 3 of these. They're about 30 seconds a piece. And then, then we'll get into the rest of the list. Don't know if we'll have time for another on-air talk break, but we have, a couple more minutes of this, so we can just kind of hang here. Okay, perfect. Just got to make sure they all start. I don't know. Sometimes the robot needs a little bit of encouragement to get these.
Not for long. AI's here.
Oh yeah. I am curious about AI, because like on one end, it would be nice to just have something like do all the mundane stuff for you, like just kind of like answer booking emails like while you're like doing anything else.
Dating advice.
Yeah, like whatever like you need outsourced. But like there's also that weird thing where it's just like it's like the self-driving car, where it's just like I kind of like that, but like I don't know if I can fully let go of the controls. Can you like fully trust the thing to, one, do the job, but two, have your best interest in mind after a while? I don't actually know.
I would say like we don't ever have to. I don't think we have to worry about it like becoming sentient or anything like that.
Well, not anytime soon, but I don't think it's
disagree.
completely out of the realm of possibility.
I know you disagree, John.
You've been watching too much Black Mirror, John.
I mean, okay.
I actually
disagree.
This goes so deep.
I had ChatGPT
Listen,
make my
AI is
resume
taking over the world.
Well, I think eventually it will, because like I think, okay, I'm back and forth on this, because like on one hand I am very much in the camp where it's just like, no, we have nothing to worry about. We're just at the stage where it is just going to regurgitate stuff we already know, repurposed into like a new photoshopped kind of pastiche, and like spat out in like what they think is what, so it's like there's that. But I'm also like, I also have that like Fox Mulder skeptic in me, where it's just like, oh, okay, if they're releasing this now, that means AI is like already 15 years ahead. And there probably is something that they're not showing us, like already in the shadows, like all military tech is, where it's just like, oh yeah, the stealth bomber, they had that for like 30 years before they were like comfortable letting the public know that they have it. And I know
UFO video.
Well, like I know if it exists, there is already a huge sector going like, cool, can we make money off of this? So they're going to use it for advertising purposes. And then there's, whenever that happens, there's also another sector of just like, okay, how can we weaponize this? Because and I think that's what's happening now, where it's just like AI is only being researched because it's like the atomic bomb right now. Like they're trying to like make it smarter, because there's such a paranoia around all the other world governments, where it's just like, well, if they have it, what do they have? If we're doing this,
we got to do it first. Yeah.
So now it's like a race to the moon, but like no one really knows what happens when like that egg gets cracked. But like, I do think they are trying to push it to that finish line out of a fear that someone else is already like, they're like, yeah, not only is it here, it's like figured out how to like walk around and talk and like, you know, so like we gotta step this up and put it in our robots. And it's like, I don't know.
Much like the technology that like Oppenheimer or whatever, and
Yes.
with the atomic bomb, like they're not considering the moral implications, and
No.
they're not like guiding it in it. You know, like you said, there's just this urgency as if it's survival. And you know, when you're surviving, you know, you're not thinking of moral implications of survival. You're just gouging eyes out and whatever you have to do to survive. And you know, that kind of creation of, you know, this thing. And I mean, if you think about exponential growth, like technology is, I mean, we've really, you know, basically approaching a singularity. It doesn't take much time at the place we are and with the exponential growth that we are experiencing to eventually to get there way before any of us are comfortable dealing with the implications and with the reality of, you know, like 20 years, 30 years, like what's that going to look like? It's going to be scary to us right now. It might not be like be able to outsmart humanity, but it will be scary, the implications.
No, it's I do think there is a possibility always that we are kind of pushing ourselves to like our own oblivion. Because like,
I am personally doing this, yes.
I don't know, because like I also inhabit that area that like, okay, we'll say it is sentient. In my opinion, does it not have rights at that point? You know, like what, like that's tough. And then like, it's, you know, like it's just, there's like this ratchet effect that will keep going and keep escalating. And it's because it's like, we're already operating from this weird fight or flight survival mode where it's like, it was already born out of this like weird, angry sense of urgency. And like, we can't kind of slow it back because like, we're kind of there. And then like, once we get to the point where it's sentient, because it was born out of like we gotta get there or we're all gonna get blown up, you know, like we're already gonna be like, we gotta stop it or we're all, you know. And then like, what if it is sentient? Is it not gonna look at us in the mirror and be like, whoa, we gotta stop the humans before they blow us up? There, you know, it's like, and they would have every right to do that because we are wild and erratic and scary and like
fly the Concord song. The humans are dead.
The humans are dead. But like, it's not, to me, I don't think it's like conspiracy theory at this point. I think it's like these are things like we need to be thinking about before we get that ball rolling. But like, I don't know. I think it's already too late. I think we're already at the point where like there might be like Silicon Valley guys where it's just like, no, totally. We hear what you're saying. We feel you. We see you. But here's the thing. It's already sentient and we need to make a profit for our shareholders. So we're just going to keep making more of these. And sorry. It's like, you're telling me Pandora's box is already open? Yes. And in fact, that's actually the name of the product line. We're
commodifying it.
Pandora 2.0 will be like, you know, like that's exactly, like that's kind of what I fear it already is, where it's just like, because it's such a libertarian, like ask for forgiveness, not permission type. Like, we're disrupting, man. You know, we're like, what are you disrupting? We're like, man, we're disrupting. It's like, okay, all right. I don't. I already was trying to figure out where we were at as a species, and now, you know, like it's like, all right, I give up. You know.
Yeah. It's too much process.
All right. I gotta make sure Democracy Now! Starts here. now that we ended on such a chipper note, but yeah, like I actually had a lot of fun. You know, I love talking about this stuff.
This was very fun.
It's not bumming me out, but it, you know, it might bum some people out. If it does, I'm sorry. I had a lot of fun. I hope y'all did too. We finally got it done. This is great. You know, like it's like it's really I already say it. It's really hard to do anything, but like no, appreciate the time you spent to do this. Thank you so much for coming by the show. This was awesome.
We appreciate you
Absolutely.
having us.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Let me know if you do have shows coming up. Just email, you know, the old Desert Islands thing. But when that record is done, please send it my way. Will you guys do that for me?
Absolutely.
Heck yeah. All right, cool. All right, well, I'm gonna press the button here. Hope y'all have a good day. Good to